All right, at this time, I'd love to invite any children who are here today up front for a little story time. Come on up. Come on. Well, these ones belong. Oh, okay. These ones belong to me, so they're kind of half count. All right, take a seat. Hi, friends. Good morning. Come on up. Perfect. Kaden, can you sit down? Sit down, Michael. Awesome. Wonderful. It's so great to see you all today. Good morning. I'm going to sit down so we can all see together. If some of you on the end want to come up closer over here so you're closer to me, that would be awesome too. Well, good morning, everybody. So I have something with me. I'm going to grab it from behind us here. Oh, good. We're all getting nice and close and cozy. I love it. I have something with me today, and it's something that's really important that I usually bring with me everywhere I go. Do you guys know what this is? It's a water bottle. Do you guys have one of these at home? I have a couple of them. This is my one that I keep here in my office because it's so important. So what do we put in here? Water. We put water in there, right? So can you guys show me maybe what your face might look like on a really hot day when you've been playing outside, you've been running around, it's really hot outside. What might your face or your body look like? Yeah. I'm so hot and I'm so tired, right? And what do you think your body's telling you that you could really use? A drink of water, right? So water. What happens when you get inside and you take a big cold sip of water? What happens to your body? It's cold, yeah. And it feels better, right? When we're so hot and we're tired, we take a drink of water and our body gets filled up and we feel so much better after our drink of water. So God created water as an important gift to us. Plants need it to grow, and animals need it to drink, and we need it to keep our bodies healthy and growing as well. So there's a story in the Bible where Jesus, he was on a big long walk, and it was a hot, sunny day, and he stopped to get a drink from a well. Hi, can you sit down? He stopped to get a drink from a well, and he saw a woman there. There was a woman at the well who was getting some water for her family. And Jesus taught this woman about a new kind of water. Can you sit down, please? It's called living water. Can you guys say living water? Living water is a different kind of water. Yep, it's not water that we drink. It's a special water from Jesus. So if drinking water goes into our mouth and into our belly, does anybody have an idea where Jesus's living water might go in our body? Yeah, where? I think it will go into our heart. You are exactly right. It does go into our hearts. So when water goes into our body, or when water goes onto plants, it helps them grow big and strong. And Jesus's living water goes into our hearts and helps our hearts grow and be filled with love and joy that we can share with everyone around us. Just like the woman in the story, she was so excited to learn about the living water. She went and she told all her friends and her family about Jesus's living water. Do you guys think we can all go tell our friends and family about Jesus' living water? Yeah. Yeah, I think that sounds like a great plan. All right, should we fold our hands and pray together? Can you guys repeat after me? Dear God, thank you for the gift of water that keeps our bodies healthy. And thank you for Jesus, who fills us with living water. Help us share your love with everyone we meet. Amen. All right, you guys can go head back to your seats. Thanks for coming up today. Our scripture for today comes from the Gospel of John, the 4th chapter, beginning at verse 5. It is the familiar story of the Samaritan woman at the well. So Jesus came to a Samaritan city called Sychar near the plot of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired out by his journey, was sitting by the well. It was about noon. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria?" Jews do not share things in common with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us the well and with his sons and his flocks drank from it?" Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I will give will become in them a spring of water gushing up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come back." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you say that the place where people must worship is in Jerusalem." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father seeks such as these to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will proclaim all things to us." Jesus said to her, "I am he, the one who is speaking to you." Just then his disciples came, and they were astonished that he was speaking with a woman, but no one said, "What do you want?" or "Why are you speaking with her?" Then the woman left her water jar and went back to the city. She said to the people, "Come and see a man who told me everything I have ever done. He cannot be the Messiah, can he?" They left the city and were on their way to him. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Good morning. Good to be here together as we continue the sermon series Grounded in Creation, looking at these parts of God's creation that help feed us and form us. Last week, Pastor Kristen gave a great sermon on earth and dirt and how we are formed in this clay, in this dirt that God forms us. And of course, this week, we turn our attention to water. Thank you, Pastor Jean, for reading this story perhaps you're familiar with, of the woman from Samaria and this invitation to living water. Well, I was a sophomore in college, and I was looking for a summer job. It was that time of year, sometime in the spring, looking for that summer job. And a fair came to our campus, and a bunch of different directors of different summer camps, Bible camps, came to our campus looking for college students to work at their camps. And I thought, well, maybe this is something I could try out. I was really good at playing video games. I was an indoor kind of child. So when they asked me if I liked the outdoors, I said, well, I've seen them. I think I mentioned something about growing up in California, thinking that might earn me some points in the interview. But of course, what they were looking for was my curiosity and faith and how I would lead kids in faith. And that was what I was most interested in. But as I wandered around to these different booths, I kept circling back to this small camp in northern Wisconsin. It was based on the south shore of Lake Superior, in between Bayfield and Superior, Wisconsin, called Camp Amnicon. Right on the Amnicon River that flows north into the lake. And I kept circling back because the camp director there was interesting and had a different story and talked about how their camp was all about serving not only kids within congregations, they were started at Central Lutheran here in Minneapolis, but also kids who didn't have access to the greater outdoors. But she wanted to make sure that I was comfortable with being outside and in the wilderness, and I didn't really have much of a resume for it. But they reluctantly offered me the job. And so they sent me this extensive packing list to prepare for camp. It had things like rain gear. Yep. And a sleeping bag that was rated down to 0 degrees. And I'm trying to remember all of the other things, all sorts of things that I looked at this list and I said, I don't have all of these things. And I looked at the pay that they were paying me and I was like, I can't afford to buy all of them. We figured it out. I bought a sleeping bag. I borrowed some rain gear. I made my way to Camp Amnicon. And then we started staff training. And I tell this to our summer camp staff here at Spirit in the Pines when they invite me to give a little talk. This summer camp was a little bit of a Wild West sort of summer camp. We did all of our trips outside of the camp on the trail, on our own, in canoes and Duluth packs. We boiled our water. Every ounce of water that we drank, we took from the river or from the lake, and then we boiled it to avoid any sort of parasites over a campfire that we made at the camp. We cooked all of our meals over that same campfire. We were prepared for everything. Little did I know that I was the one being entrusted to be prepared for all of those things, of course. But I learned all sorts of things at this summer camp. I learned about the seriousness of being in the wilderness, especially in the rain and in the cold. These rivers, especially the Brule River, if you've ever seen it in northern Wisconsin, is always cold, even in the heat of the summer. And so if you're in that water too long and then it starts to rain, hypothermia is a real risk. I learned that if you're always cooking your food over an open flame, you need to be prepared to make a fire even when it's pouring rain. And one of our very first staff training lessons was building a wet wood fire. And I remember Simon, one of the camp directors, who was this wiry Welsh fellow, and he had constant energy. And he took whatever wood we had gathered from the forest and he doused it with the hose at camp, just doused it. And then we had to find the core of the wood that was still dry. But then afterwards he said, well, it's still raining. So he doused it again. And then he had these buckets of water that he dipped all of the wood that we had gathered into these buckets of water. And we started slowly getting this fire going. And then he would just spray the fire with water because he needed to make sure that we could make a fire even when it was pouring rain. And we learned how to do all of these amazing things. This camp was based on the shores of Lake Superior, and most of the experiences that I led were on the Brule River, one of the most beautiful rivers in all of these United States. This river that flows with crystal clear water and has some of the best fishing if you're a fisher person. Many presidents have fished the Brule River. But it flows north, like I said, all the way to Lake Superior. And so the last night of every camp we would spend on the beach, sleeping on the shores of Lake Superior. We would wake up to the sunrise, looking north all the way across this massive lake to Canada. So I got to know this big, enormous sea of a lake. I got to know how powerful Lake Superior actually was. And on some experiences, we led students in a 34-foot canoe, which is about here to the baptismal font. A 34-foot canoe with 16 people paddling together across the Apostle Islands in Lake Superior. And when you're on this giant lake, you get a sense of how powerful all of that water is. How many people have been up north? I hope many of you. So many of you. And if you haven't, you must take the time. Stretch your imagination. Go outside as an outdoor cat for a minute and experience the North Shore. You must visit. But Lake Superior, if you can imagine it, is actually 10% of Earth's fresh water. Lake Superior is 10% of the fresh water on planet Earth. What? In our backyard, right here. If you were to take the water in Lake Superior and burst its banks all over North and South America, it would flood both continents at 1 foot. Can you imagine 1 foot of water covering all of both continents? Water stays in Lake Superior for an average of 191 years. It stays in this beautiful, deep, enormous body of water for almost 200 years. And it's because of that Lake Superior is some of the most crystal clear, beautiful water on the planet. In fact, the visibility, they measure it, underwater visibility. The average visibility is 27 feet underwater. And there are parts of Lake Superior where the visibility stretches to 100 feet. Now, I'm not sure I can see 100 feet above water, but isn't that amazing? This beautiful, beautiful body of water. As I spent this summer on Lake Superior learning about this lake, experiencing its power, its weather, the very presence of being near it, you start to see how that lake surprises you every single day. Like I said, we spent so many nights sleeping on the shore of Lake Superior and waking up to a sunrise that I got to see all sorts of different faces to this beautiful body of water. I saw it with giant 8, 10, 12-foot waves crashing against the shoreline. I learned that those waves can grow to 40 feet in fall storms, massive ocean-like waves. But I also saw it like glass. Not a single murmur. There's no tides in Lake Superior, so all the waves are created by wind and weather. I've seen it frozen over, not that summer, but at other times, where you can walk across it and explore sea caves all along the shore outside of Bayfield and in the Apostle Islands. I even spent a morning surfing with a canoe in those 6-foot waves. We paddled out and then figured out how to maneuver our canoe so that it would surf all the way back. I had to bring some California with me, right? But this water is incredibly powerful. It reminds me of the story of the woman at the well, where Jesus, as Heidi said, was incredibly thirsty, walking this long road and needed to find a place for a drink of water, and wanders to the well completely unprepared. And the question of this woman to this Jesus is so bold. She just says, "You have no bucket, and the well is deep. What are you doing, man?" I just love it. Jesus approaches the well, and the woman says, "What are you doing here? This water is deep. This well is deep." It reminds me of one of my favorite folk songs by Mason Jennings. I'll try to sing it here. How deep is that river? How deep is that river? Yeah. I don't want to know if it has a name. I don't need to know how to cross it gets. Before I get my spirit wet, I just want to know how deep. The well is deep. The water is deep. This woman somehow knew at the very beginning of this encounter that this would go somewhere deep. And indeed, that's exactly where Jesus goes. Jesus knows this woman inside and out. The things that she would tell everyone around the well, the reasons why she was there that day, the things that she was ashamed to share. Jesus knew all of it, the depth of her experience. And something about this Jesus drew this woman in. Something about this Jesus helped her know that she could be known and loved, beloved in this very moment. I just want to know how deep. Jesus invites her deeper and deeper and deeper. Not only this water that will refresh her in a hot day, but a water that ties her to the very life force of creation itself. Facts about Lake Superior are wonderful, but we are made of water. As Heidi said, we can't survive very long without water as human beings because we are water. We are made of water. If God formed us out of the dirt and breathed into us life, God sustains us with water. The water of creation that flows down in rain that melts out of the snow that is ground, all that's feeding the ground and the soil and everything that grows. Jesus invites her deeper into living water, water that is stirring with the very breath of creation. This Grounded in Creation series is so beautiful because it is so simple. We see water every single day. We might fill up a glass at the faucet in the morning. We might wash our face with it before we go to bed. We might go and ski or surf on it in the afternoon or swim in a lake or a river. It is all around us. And yet, do we notice it? Do we allow that rain to draw us deeper into connection with who God intends us to be and who God is calling out of creation itself? These lakes, these rivers, these places in our memories, maybe it's not Lake Superior for you. Maybe it's a swimming hole in your childhood. Maybe it's an aqueduct that you experienced. Maybe it's a creek or a brook or a lake or a swamp. But we have these places of water that form our memories of who we are. In fact, I looked on my camera app just the other day. You know, on the iPhone, you can search whatever you want. And I just typed in water. And it was pages upon pages upon pages of memories with my kids at the lake, of beautiful sunsets while on vacation. It was images of Lake Superior and the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. It was images of the Mississippi River and images of Lake Waconia and Lake Minnetonka, of the lake up at Spirit in the Pines, Pleasant Lake. It was all of these images of water all around us. But Jesus is doing something more. You see, actually, in this moment, with this woman from Samaria, Jesus reveals who he is. This is the first time in the Gospel of John that Jesus does this, the first person who Jesus says, I am the Messiah. It is this woman with a curious story, a shameful moment, a shameful past, perhaps, as each of us have this. But Jesus says, you are beloved because I know you and because I love you. So wherever you are today, if you are in a season of life where that question of your belovedness sinks deep into your bones, or whether you are in a season of life where you feel like you can share God's goodness with those around you, we have a reminder in a splash of water that God's belovedness is for you, that you are a beloved child of God. You are created in the image of God. You are sustained with the living water of creation itself, and God intends for you something beautiful and good, and that will feed others across your life. So these waters are deep. These waters are powerful. And in these waters, we can be known by our Creator. In these waters, we can experience the grace upon grace upon grace, not because of anything that we've done, but because God gives it to us freely. So as we baptize little Hugh here this morning, we can remember that God calls us to new life, new as every single morning on Lake Superior, new as every single opportunity that God gives us, new because God invites it out of us. So may you trust that you are beloved. May you trust that you are known, and may you trust that you can always come home to living water. And it's as close as a splash from the faucet or a dip of your toes in a lake or a stream. Amen.
Thank you for listening to this worship podcast of St. Andrew Lutheran Church. We hope that this recording provides you with a moment of God's grace wherever this finds you. Any contribution you make to St. Andrew will bolster our ministry and outreach, including our podcasting directly to you. You can do so online. Thank you for joining us for this podcast, and I wish you every blessing from Christ today.